Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Fassio and I love to knit and make knitting patterns. In this video I want to tell you how I made this winter version of the Artemide sweater, that it's a summer sweater, and all the different modifications that I made in order to make it in this boxy look effect and with long sleeves. Look how it's nice and smooth. The only changes that I made is with the playing with the gauge. So I knitted with thicker yarn by using 2 threads and with 4mm needles, so you might use also 4.5 depending on the gauge and the effect you want to obtain. I knitted the S size and I will show you step by step all the different modifications, but there are very few ones that I made. I followed the pattern. I'm wearing the S size and I knitted the S size so that the effect is just given by the different gauge. I will show you also another version with 2 mohair threads worked together and knitted again with a 4mm needle. So you look at the long sleeve that I made, and I used the pattern with the lace pattern, and on the border we have a ribbed pattern. So I'll tell you everything. Here you can see the original Artemide pattern that you can find on Ravelry in Italian, English and French, and the summer version is a very tight version, and all the mods made the boxy one. Here I am knitting on my new version of the Artemide sweater. The first original version, the one you have seen in the pictures, it's a summer version knitted with a cotton thread, my milk thread. It's 50 grams for 175 meters, and it's knitted with very thin needles. Here, when Rachele dyed her yarn skins. Rachele is my daughter, with this beautiful indigo, and then I found this beautiful alpaca in the same shades. I decided that I wanted to knit a sweater, and so I thought it would be nice to make a winter version of the Artemide sweater with a different gauge in order to obtain a boxy look and with long sleeves. And the winter version is also, here you can see how I'm working the saddle shoulder with the lace pattern, and the lace pattern then will be on the sleeve up to the cuffs in the ribbed section. And I'm making the increases now for the body section after the shoulder increases, and the lace pattern is also on top in the front and in the back. When here I'm making one of the increases, make one left on the sleeve section, and I thought it would be nice to make this video in order to tell how it is possible to make a different version from a very tight sweater or tee like the Artemide original one, through little mods as modifications, as by using a different gauge, or and by, of course, using a different yarn. Here I'm using the alpaca and the merino, and here I'm making the other increase. They make one right on the sleeve. And one of my thoughts is that customizations are the best part of the creative part of the knitting and making sweaters for oneself. And each time we use a pattern and we make modifications, we make a new version. It's like a new garment every time. And sometimes it's possible, like in this case, by just playing on gauge and different yarn. I will show you also another version I'm working on with 2 threads of mohair, and it's a very elegant one, and also with 4mm needles. Here I am at lunch break working on my version, winter version of the Artemide sweater, and I wanted to talk to you about some considerations about sizing and what size to knit by following our body proportions. That's the most vital thing. In fact, this is going to be one of a series of videos on how to modify and customize patterns in order to obtain the vestibility that we like the most and customize by following also our taste. Because I really believe that only when we wear something that we like very much and it makes us feel well with ourselves, we feel good, so we communicate it also to the world. All bodies are different, and this is an important considerations. And this is one of the videos where I will tell you also how to customize according to your proportions. If we consider 100 centimeters of bust circumference when we choose a size, we might have two completely different bodies. If we consider two women, maybe one is a professional swimmer and maybe another one has a really small back, but they both have 100 centimeters of bust circumference. And the wearability of the garment is completely different in the two cases. So the beauty of working top down is exactly this, that we can try on the work in progress and we can see how it's growing, and we can make, while we are knitting it, all the different modifications that will work for our body proportions. So it's vital and crucial that we try on our work in progress and we see how it's growing also in consideration of our gauge, because nobody has the same gauge, or maybe the yarn we are using is completely different. So it's important, try on the work in progress and make those modifications that will make the garment the perfect one for you. And for example, if we have a bust circumference for the XL size and we start by casting on stitches for the XL, it might happen that we have really small shoulders, so that if we cast on for the XL size, we will lose the sweater off our shoulders, and maybe it's better to cast on for the S size. And while working on the yoke, we make all the increases and necessary modifications to obtain then the size that we need for our bust circumferences. For example, in the Artemide sweater, we have a saddler shoulder, so we can see here at what point we can stop for the increases in order to obtain the shoulder point that we want, because then afterwards we work on the sleeve increases and then we have only the body section is defined, let's say. So we can then eventually make it here in the underarm, then when we cast on the stitches for the width of our garment, we can make some changes and then add or cast on less stitches in proportion of what we want. So I'm going to keep knitting and I will show you all the different stages of the yoke. And here I am with the most important part of the fitting of the yoke of the garment. Here is where I can understand if I'm going in the right direction for the idea of the sweater. I wanted a really boxy effect, and so I used the two different yarns worked together in order to have a wider gauge and obtain, by working the S size of the Artemide sweater, this wider and more boxy effect. Look at the shoulder point, it's down here and it's perfect because the line goes down, if you can imagine it, on the body, and it's the boxy effect that I wanted. Now, if you work and here it's this point where you can make all the changes. If you want a less wider part, then a less boxy effect on the body, you can work one repetition less on the shoulder point. And now if I check my sleeve, I see that it's perfectly and it's tight as I wanted them. Now if I'm going to think about the cast on stitches in the underarm, when I join in the round, I work only on the body and put on hold the sleeves, I think that I'm going to follow exactly what the instructions indicate, because it's perfect for the look. This is the point where I can make the changes, because by measuring between the two stitch markers with a centimeter, I can try to understand how many stitches I need for the wearability I want, because I put the centimeter on my gauge and understand if the instructions are perfect for me or I need to cast on more or less stitches in the underarm. And this is a very important customization in order to obtain what we like to wear. Now I can't wait to work on the body and see how this boxy effect looks. Okay, here I am, and right now I'm at the lace section on the body with the ribbed and the knit with the knit through the back loop section. Here you see I have the increases of the sleeve section, and I've put on hold my sleeve stitches, and after having tried it on, I only give you an advice. Last night I was so eager to put the stitches on hold that I've used the same yarn that I'm knitting with, but if you use a different color to put on the stitches on hold, it's easier than to put them back on the needles, and it's so easier to find them. Here you can see that I've casted on the stitches for my underarm, and I followed exactly the indications on the pattern instructions for my size, because it was the wearability that I wanted. So but if you try it on, and you can see if you need to cast on some or less stitches. But here you can see the first and only modification that I made on the pattern instructions, because there you have 30 rounds of a knit section, because the wearability and the gauge of the other garment is very tighter. So, and the other reason, as you've seen, I'm working top down, so the yoke section is already almost at my waistline, so I don't need all those 30 rounds of knit stitches. So I have only made about 8-10 rounds before the lace section. This is an important consideration, because this makes you understand how important it is to try on the garment while working, because of different gauge, or there is no body proportion that's similar to another one. So only by trying on we can understand what we need to do. And here I am with the other version that I was talking to you about, that I'm knitting with 2 threads of mohair, and it is a darker version because I wanted an elegant one. I'm trying it on, and I've actually casted on less stitches in respect of the pattern instruction in the underarm, but I'm very happy with the effect and the look. Now, I was making only 2 considerations, and I might make some modifications on this version, in the sense that it's black, and so I was thinking about making the body section all stockinette stitch by knitting all the rounds, and only making a little border at the end with the lace pattern, and the ribbing with the knit through the back loop stitch. The arms are going to have the lace design that's going to go down to the cuffs, that are going to have the rib section as on the body. This is why I'm going to explain to you why I was thinking this, because I'm working first of all with a darker color that you can see less what the design is, and the mohair is a furry yarn, so you'd see less the pattern design. Here you can see a close-up of the darker version, and there are glass beads too, so the stockinette stitch will make it nicer. And here I am with the finished body section, and I confess that it's perfectly, I love it. It's just perfect and then how I wanted it. So I just made the lace pattern and the ribbed section with the knit through the back loop, and it looks really nice. I've started one sleeve, and it's very nice. And I was considering that I have just one skein left of yarn. So what I'm doing while I'm working, I'm weighting it in order to see if I can manage to knit both the sleeves the same length. What did I do? I took my skein, I weighted it at the beginning before starting knitting my first sleeve, and while I'm working it, I keep weighting in order to see how much yarn I'm using, but I can see that I will have enough. I'm also making some decreases in order to have a tight sleeve. It's 4 decreases. I have 4 stitches between my decreases, so I knit together, knit to 4 stitches before mark, slip, slip, knit. But I was going to make it every 8 rounds on the 9th one, but then I considered that my lace design is on 8 rounds, so I'm going to knit 7 rounds and make 1 round of decreases so I can follow this sleeve lace design, and it's easy to remember. There's another advice. I've casted on 8 stitches for the body section. So when I pick up stitches, when I start my sleeve, in order not to have that hole, I pick up 8 plus 4 stitches, because 2 stitches go on that little diagonal line in order to not have a hole there. And here I am with the finished Artemide boxy winter sweater, and I'm so happy. I like it so much. And I hope that you found this video useful in order to understand what kind of modifications you can make. And sometimes it's easy as just changing threads, yarn, and using a different gauge in order to have a new style, a new garment, by starting from instructions that might have a total different look. So here I am, I'm really loving it, and it's so exciting to wear it. And also because only when you wear something that you love, you feel comfortable with it, you really communicate it to the world. So I hope it was useful, and if you have any questions, any ideas for possible videos or things that you would like to talk about, please comment here below. So write your comment so I can answer you, or just take in consideration possible ideas for future videos on how to make modification. And if you want to follow me, you can find me also on Instagram as Fassio. Bye bye!